The message traveled through space for 3 months before it reached Earth. It was a distress call, broadcast on every frequency the Galactic Coalition could manage. The words were simple and desperate. "We are dying. Please help us. We need heroes." The Coalition was made up of 12 different alien species. They had lived in peace for 3,000 years. They built beautiful cities, created art, and traded knowledge across the stars. War was something they read about in old history files. Violence was a concept their children learned about but never witnessed. Then the Devourers came. The machines swept through the outer colonies like a metal storm. They consumed everything: resources, technology, entire planets. The Coalition tried to negotiate. The Devourers did not respond. The Coalition tried to defend themselves. They had no idea how. Their weapons were old, designed for ceremony rather than combat. Their soldiers were scientists who had read about tactics but never practiced them. System after system fell. Billions died. The Coalition sent their desperate message to every corner of the galaxy, hoping someone would answer, someone who knew how to fight, someone who could save them. Earth received the message on a Tuesday afternoon. The prison ship Redemption left Earth orbit 6 weeks later. It was an ugly vessel, retrofitted from an old transport carrier. The hull was scarred from decades of service. Inside, the walls were bare metal and the air smelled like recycled oxygen and old mistakes. There were 4 people on board. Taeyang stood in the ship's command center, watching the stars stream past. He was tall and thin, with short black hair and eyes that never seemed to blink. He had been a Special Forces operative for 12 years before they locked him away. His crime was simple. He had saved 8,000 civilians by destroying a rebel compound. The problem was that the compound was in neutral territory, and his actions had violated 17 different treaties. The military court had not cared about the civilians he saved. They only cared about the rules he broke. 3 days until we reach Coalition space, said Junho from his station. He was younger than Taeyang, maybe 30 years old. His fingers moved constantly across the control panels, checking and rechecking every system. Yunyo had been a tactical officer before his court-martial. He had refused to follow orders during a massacre. His commanders wanted him to fire on a refugee camp. He said no. They said it was an order. He still said no. The camp was saved, but Junho spent 5 years in a military prison for disobedience. Sora was in the weapons bay, doing what she did best, making things that exploded. She was short and compact, with scarred hands and a quick smile that never reached her eyes. Before prison, she had been an insurgent leader on the colony worlds. She knew 47 different ways to make bombs from household items. She knew how to turn a civilian building into a death trap. She knew how to make an entire city afraid to sleep. The government had caught her after 10 years. They put her in a black site prison and tried to forget she existed. Hana was in the medical bay organizing her supplies. She looked like someone's kind aunt, with gentle eyes and careful hands, but her file told a different story. She was a biologist and a doctor. During a border conflict, she had created 3 different bioweapons. The weapons had killed quickly and quietly. Villages died overnight, children and adults alike. Hana had been efficient and thorough. When the war ended, they arrested her for crimes against humanity. She never denied what she had done. She just said it had been necessary. These were the people Earth sent to save the Galactic Coalition. The Redemption dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Coalition space. Within an hour, 3 Coalition warships surrounded them. Within 2 hours, they were escorted to Central Command, a massive station orbiting a blue-green planet. Ambassador Lirvan met them in the docking bay. She was a Velen, one of the founding species of the Coalition. She looked like an octopus that had learned to stand upright, with purple skin and 8 tentacles that moved constantly as she spoke. 2 of her tentacles held a data pad. Another adjusted her translator device. "Welcome," she said. Her voice came through the translator as soft and musical. "We are grateful for Earth's response to our plea. We expected more of you." "There are more ships coming," Taeyang said. He stepped forward and several Coalition security officers tensed. "We're the advance team. We assess the situation and determine strategy." "I see." Lirvan's tentacles rippled in what might have been nervousness. "I must be honest. We reviewed your files. The psychological profiles Earth provided. You are all criminals." "Yes," Taeyang said simply. "War criminals," Lirvan continued. "You have all committed terrible acts. Murder, destruction, prohibited weapons. Earth sent us monsters, not heroes. Sora laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. You asked for people who know how to win wars. We're what you get. I don't understand, Lirvin said. Her tentacles twisted around each other. Why would Earth send criminals? Why not send your best soldiers? Your most noble warriors? Yunho looked up from the datapad he was studying. Humans don't send heroes to war, he said quietly. Heroes fight clean. Heroes inspire. Heroes win with honor, but heroes lose when the enemy doesn't care about honor. We're here, Hana added, because we're willing to do what heroes won't do. We've already lost our souls. We might as well lose them for a good cause. Taeyang stepped closer to the ambassador. She backed away slightly. You called for heroes, he said. But you don't need heroes. You need people who know how to fight ugly. People who know how to win at any cost. People who can become monsters so you don't have to. Lirvin was silent for a long moment. Her skin color shifted from purple to a darker shade. Finally, she spoke. The Devourers will reach the agricultural world of Venlara in 4 days. We cannot stop them. We have tried everything. If Venlara falls, 15 billion people will die. Then we go to Venlara, Taeyang said. You are only 4 people, Lirvin protested. We have thousands of soldiers already there. What can you do that they cannot? Sora smiled her cold smile. Everything they're afraid to do. The Redemption departed for Venlara 3 hours later. Behind them, Ambassador Lirvin watched the prison ship disappear into the darkness. She felt a chill run through her tentacles. The Coalition had called for heroes, and heroes had not come. She wondered if they would regret what had come instead. Venlara was beautiful from orbit. The planet was covered in golden fields and green forests. Cities dotted the landscape like jewels. Their buildings made of white stone that gleamed in the sunlight. 15 billion people lived there, farming and trading and raising their families. In 3 days, the Devourers would arrive and destroy it all. Commander Thelrix met them in the Planetary Defense Center. He was a Korthan built like a boulder with gray skin and 4 arms. Before the war, he had been a teacher. Now he commanded what remained of Venlara's defenses. Thank you for coming, Thelrix said. His voice was deep and tired. I will be honest with you. We cannot win this battle. We can only delay the Devourers and evacuate as many civilians as possible. Taeyang looked at the holographic display showing Venlara's defense grid. Show me everything. Your weapons, your soldiers, your plans. For the next 2 hours, Thelrix explained, the Coalition had 20,000 soldiers on Venlara. They had defensive shields around major cities. They had evacuation ships ready to launch. They had weapons platforms in orbit. Their strategy was simple. Hold the Devourers at the outer defenses for as long as possible, then fall back to the cities. When the cities became unsafe, evacuate everyone they could and surrender the planet. When Thelrix finished, the 4 humans were quiet. Finally, Junho spoke. Where are your traps? Traps? Thelrix looked confused. Yes, mines, explosives, hidden weapons. Where did you place them? We don't use such things, Thelrix said. They are indiscriminate. Civilians could be hurt. Sora leaned forward. What about your civilians? Did you arm them? Train them to fight? Absolutely not. Thelrix's forearms gestured in distress. Our civilians are farmers and artists. We cannot ask them to fight. Can your buildings collapse? Hana asked calmly. Have you rigged them with explosives so the Devourers cannot use them for cover? Thelrix stared at her. You want us to destroy our own cities? If the Devourers take them, yes, Hana said. This is madness, Thelrix said. His voice rose. You are talking about destroying everything we built, poisoning our own world, turning our homes into weapons. This is not war. This is barbarism. Taeyang stood and walked to the holographic display. He touched the controls, zooming in on different cities and defense points. You've been at peace for 3,000 years, he said quietly. That's good. That's what every species should want. But it means you don't understand war anymore, real war. The kind where survival is the only goal. We understand enough, Thelrix protested. We have rules, laws of warfare. We protect civilians. We avoid unnecessary destruction. We fight with honor. The Devourers don't care about your honor, Junho said. He pulled up files on his datapad. I've studied their pattern. They don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They consume everything and move on. You can't fight them with rules when they don't follow any. Sora walked around the display, her eyes tracking every detail. Your defensive positions are good for a traditional battle. Shield walls, overlapping fire zones, clear retreat paths. But the Devourers won't fight traditionally. They'll flow around your strong points like water. They'll hit your weak spots. They'll ignore your weapons and go straight for your civilians. Then what do you suggest? Thelrix demanded. How would you defend Venlara? The four humans looked at each other. Then Taeyang began to speak. His plan was horrifying. He wanted to turn 3 major cities into kill zones. Evacuate the civilians, then rig every building with explosives. When the Devourers entered, bring the cities down on top of them. He wanted to poison water supplies that the Devourers might use for cooling their systems. He wanted to create false evacuation signals to draw Devourer forces into ambushes. He wanted to sacrifice the planet's infrastructure to buy time and kill as many enemies as possible. Junho added tactical details. Use the orbital weapons platforms not for direct attack, but to drop debris in strategic locations. Create choke points. Force the Devourers into predictable paths, then hit them with everything. Sora described how to turn civilian equipment into weapons. Farm machinery could be converted into bombs. Industrial chemicals could become poisonous gas. The beautiful white stone of their buildings could be superheated and used as shrapnel. Hana spoke last, and her words were the coldest. She could create a biological agent, she explained, that would corrode the Devourers' mechanical parts. It would spread through their systems like a plague. It would also contaminate the soil for 50 years, making farming impossible. But it would work. When they finished, Thelrix was silent. His gray skin had turned pale. All 4 of his arms hung limp at his sides. You want to destroy Venlara, he finally said. You want to turn a living world into a poisoned wasteland. Yes, Taeyang said. Because a wasteland can be cleaned. A dead species cannot be brought back. I cannot authorize this, Thelrix said. It goes against everything the Coalition believes. We would rather surrender than commit such destruction. Then you'll die, Sora said simply. The Devourers don't accept surrender. They just kill slower. Thelrix looked at each of them. These humans with their dead eyes and terrible ideas. These monsters that Earth had sent. I need to contact the Coalition Council. This decision is too large for me alone. You have 12 hours before the Devourers arrive, Junho said, checking his datapad. Decide quickly. The council meeting lasted 8 hours. The humans waited in their ship, preparing equipment and running simulations. Finally, the message came through. It was short. Proceed with the human plan. May the stars forgive us. The battle for Venlara lasted 2 days. The Devourers came as expected, a wave of mechanical death spreading across the planet's surface. They expected the standard Coalition defense, shields, static positions, orderly retreat. Instead, they found a nightmare. The first city they entered exploded. 10,000 tons of stone and steel came crashing down, crushing Devourer units beneath. When they tried to regroup, orbital debris fell on them. When they tried to go around, they found every path mined and trapped. Sora had worked for 30 hours straight, turning peaceful Venlara into a giant trap. Every bridge was rigged to collapse. Every tunnel had explosives. The beautiful fields hid mines that could destroy a tank. Junho coordinated from orbit, watching the Devourer movements and adjusting the defense in real time. He was playing chess with an enemy army, and every piece he moved left destruction in its wake. Hana's biological agents spread through the Devourer ranks. Their systems began to fail. Their movements slowed. They tried to adapt, but the agent mutated faster than they could compensate. Taeyang led the Coalition soldiers in ways they had never imagined. Quick strikes, then disappear. Hit the enemy and fade into the ruins. Make every meter of ground cost the Devourers dearly. The Coalition soldiers were horrified by the tactics, but they followed orders. And slowly they began to understand. This was how you fought when losing was not an option. When the Devourers finally retreated, they left behind 30% of their force. It was the first time any Coalition world had made them withdraw. Venlara had won, but Venlara was destroyed. The cities were rubble. The fields were poisoned. The white stone buildings were blackened with fire and explosives. 15 billion people were alive, but they no longer had a home. Thelrix stood with Taeyang in the ruins of the capital city. Smoke drifted through the air. In the distance, Coalition soldiers helped civilians search for belongings in the wreckage. We won, Thelrix said quietly. But at what cost? The cost of survival, Taeyang replied. Your people are alive. The planet can be rebuilt. That's more than the Devourers left anyone else. You destroyed the world to save it. Yes. Thelrix looked at the human. Are all your people like you? So willing to sacrifice everything? No, Taeyang said. Most humans never have to make choices like this. They can afford to be kind and gentle and pure. That's good. That's how it should be. But when kindness isn't enough, when gentleness will get you killed, then they call people like us. The ones who are already broken, the ones who know how to be monsters. I think I understand now, Thelrix said. You saved us from the Devourers, but you also showed us what we might have to become to survive. I don't know which frightens me more. Good, Taeyang said. Fear is healthy. It keeps you careful. Just remember, we're not your enemies. We're the weapons you pointed at your enemies. As long as you point carefully, we'll keep fighting for you. The Redemption left Venlara that evening. Behind them, a broken world began the long process of healing. Ahead of them, 5 more Coalition worlds waited, each one about to fall to the Devourers, each one about to learn what monsters could do when given permission. News of Venlara spread through the Coalition like fire. Some worlds celebrated. The humans had won where everyone else had failed. They had stopped the Devourers. They had saved 15 billion lives. Other worlds were horrified. They saw the images of destroyed cities. They read the reports of poisoned fields and biological weapons. They heard about the tactics, the traps, the ambushes, the complete destruction of infrastructure. Some coalition governments announced they would refuse human assistance. They would rather surrender to the Devourers than accept Earth's methods. The Redemption traveled to 6 more systems over the next 3 months. Each time they won. Each time the cost was terrible. On the mining world of Kalth, Sora turned the entire underground tunnel system into a maze of death. The Devourers went in and never came out. 2,000 years of mining history was erased in the explosions. But the people of Kalth survived. On the ocean planet Dresh, Junho coordinated a strategy that used the planet's violent storms as weapons. He waited until a hurricane was forming, then led the Devourers directly into its path. The storm destroyed friend and enemy alike, but more enemies than friends. The Coalition fleet lost 30 ships. The Devourers lost 300. On the garden world of Lear, Hana created a new biological agent. This one didn't just attack Devourer machinery. It infected their communication systems, making them turn on each other. The Devourers fought themselves for 2 days before they realized what was happening. By then, the damage was done. Lear was saved, but Hana's agent lingered in the atmosphere. The Coalition scientists said it would take a decade to fully remove it. Each victory added to the humans' reputation. Some called them saviors. Others called them butchers. Everyone called them effective. Ambassador Learvin watched the reports from her office on Central Command. The purple of her skin had faded to a dull gray over the past months. She had authorized every mission. She had approved every terrible tactic. The weight of those decisions was crushing her. She called a meeting with the human crew. They met in a neutral conference room, just the 5 of them. Learvin had brought files, data pads full of information about the human victories. She spread them across the table. I need to understand, she said. Her tentacles moved slowly, lacking their usual energy. How can you do these things? How can you live with yourselves? Taeyang sat across from her. His face was blank, emotionless. We can't live with ourselves, he said. That's why we volunteered for this mission. Explain. Hana spoke next. She pulled up her file on one of the data pads and slid it to Learvin. Read it, all of it. Don't skip the details, Learvin read. Her skin turned darker as she went through the pages. The file showed everything Hana had done during the border conflict. The bioweapons she created, the villages that died, the children who suffocated in their sleep when her agents filled the air. The total death count was over 8,000 people. I did all of that, Hana said quietly. I knew what would happen. I made the weapons anyway. I deployed them anyway. I killed children who had done nothing wrong except live in the wrong place. Why? Learvin's voice was barely a whisper. Because my government told me it would end the war. Because I thought saving millions was worth killing thousands. Because I was young and stupid and believed I could calculate death like a math problem. Hana's hands were steady, but her eyes were distant. I was wrong. The war didn't end. Those people died for nothing. And I can never bring them back. Junho showed Learvin his file next. I refused to fire on a refugee camp, he said. My commanders called me a coward. They said following orders was the most important thing. But I saw the intelligence reports. Those refugees were harmless. Killing them would have been murder, not war. That sounds noble, Lirvin said. It wasn't, Junho replied. I made that choice in 10 seconds. I had to decide if I could live with following orders or live with refusing them. I chose what I could live with. My 3 commanding officers made different choices. They followed orders. The camp was destroyed by a different unit. 2,000 people died. Those officers went on to have successful careers. I went to prison. I don't understand, Lirvin said. You were punished for doing the right thing? No, Junho said. I was punished for disobeying orders. The right thing and the legal thing aren't always the same. Every soldier knows this. We just don't talk about it. Sora laughed, but there was no humor in it. Want to know what I did? I spent 10 years blowing up buildings. Sometimes there were soldiers inside. Sometimes there were civilians. I told myself it was for freedom. I told myself the people I killed were acceptable losses. Truth is, I just liked being good at something. I liked the power. You enjoyed killing? Lirvin's tentacles recoiled. No, Sora said. I enjoyed winning. I enjoyed being the person who could change things. The killing was just the price. I didn't enjoy it, but I didn't lose sleep over it either. That's what made me dangerous. Taeyang was last. He didn't show Lirvin his file. He just talked. I saved 8,000 civilians by destroying a compound in neutral territory. It violated 17 treaties. It started a diplomatic crisis. It almost caused a war between 3 governments. But those 8,000 people were alive. That was heroic, Lirvin said. No, Taeyang said firmly. It was selfish. I made a choice that I could live with. I decided that 8,000 lives were worth breaking every rule. But I didn't think about the consequences. The diplomatic crisis I started led to sanctions. Those sanctions caused food shortages. People died from those shortages. Not 8,000, maybe only 100. But they died because of my choice. You couldn't have known, Lirvan protested. That's the problem, Taeyang said. I didn't care to know. I saw a problem and I solved it my way. I didn't ask permission. I didn't consider alternatives. I just acted. That's what makes me good at war. It's also what makes me a war criminal. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Lirvan spoke. You are all broken people. Yes, they agreed together. But you still fight. You still save lives. Because we're already damned, Hana said. We can't undo what we did. We can't bring back the people we killed. The only thing we can do is make sure our crimes serve some purpose. If we're going to be monsters, we might as well be monsters who save people instead of destroying them. Lirvan's tentacles wrapped around herself, a gesture of deep thought among her people. I think I begin to understand your species now. Every species has individuals capable of terrible things, but most species try to hide them to pretend they don't exist. Humans acknowledge them. You accept that monsters are part of your nature, and you try to point them at the right targets. That's the idea, Junho said. It doesn't always work. Sometimes the monsters can't be controlled. Sometimes they turn on their own people. But when it works, when the monsters stay pointed at the real enemy, then terrible people can do good things. And that is why Earth sent you, Lirvan said. Not despite your crimes, but because of them. You know how to do terrible things. You've already proven you're willing to pay the moral cost. So Earth uses you as weapons pointed at threats that require your particular skills. Now you understand, Taeyang said. We're not here for redemption. We're not here to prove we're good people. We're here because you needed someone who knows how to be bad in useful ways. Sora leaned back in her chair. You called for heroes. Heroes are great when the fight is clean, when both sides follow rules, when honor matters. But the Devourers don't care about any of that. They're an existential threat. Stopping them requires methods that heroes can't use. It requires us. So we gave you permission to do evil things for good reasons, Lirvan said slowly. We authorized tactics we would never use ourselves. We let you bear the moral weight of those choices. That makes us responsible too, doesn't it? Yes, Hana said gently. Welcome to the burden of survival. Sometimes staying alive means doing things you'll regret forever. The question is whether you can live with that regret or not. Lirvan looked at each of them. These broken humans with their dead eyes and honest words. I have made a decision, she said. The Coalition Council will officially authorize your methods. We will watch you closely. If you cross the line, if you become the monsters you fight, we will stop you, even if it cost us everything. Fair enough, Taeyang said. Keep watching. If we go too far, you should stop us. But understand this, Lirvan continued. By authorizing your methods, we are choosing to let you carry the burden of these terrible choices. We are asking you to do evil so we can stay pure. That is not fair to you. Fairness doesn't matter, Junho said. Results matter. We'll do what's necessary. You maintain your ideals. Someone has to remember what we're fighting for. It might as well be you. The meeting ended. Lirvin returned to her office and filed the official authorization. The humans returned to their ship and prepared for the next mission. That night, Hana sat alone in the medical bay. She looked at her hands, the hands that had created weapons that killed thousands. She wondered if those hands could ever create something purely good. She didn't know the answer. In the command center, Taeyang watched the stars and thought about the 8,000 people he had saved and the 100 who had died because of his actions. He wondered if the math ever balanced out. He suspected it didn't. The humans kept winning battles, but the war was not getting better. The Devourers adapted to every tactic. They learned from each defeat. Their hive mind processed information across thousands of units simultaneously, finding patterns and adjusting strategies. Junho noticed it first. He spent hours studying Devourer movement patterns, comparing data from different battles. The numbers told a story that bothered him. They're not trying to conquer anymore, he said during a meeting on the Redemption. The four of them sat around the small table in the command center. Look at this. He pulled up a map showing Devourer movements over the past 6 months. Red lines traced their paths through Coalition space. They're searching for something. See how they move through systems? They scan, they analyze, and then they move on. Conquest is secondary. They're looking for something specific. What could machines want? Sora asked. They already take resources from every planet they touch. That's what we need to find out, Taeyang said. Hana, can you analyze the Devourer hardware we've captured? Hana had been studying Devourer technology for weeks. The Coalition had given her access to destroyed Devourer units from multiple battles. She spent her nights in the ship's small laboratory, taking apart mechanical pieces and running tests. What she found changed everything. They're not purely mechanical, Hana announced 3 days later. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from lack of sleep. Inside every Devourer unit, there's a core. It's biological. Ancient organic material preserved and integrated into the machines. She showed them images on her data pad. Inside the metallic shell of a Devourer drone, there was a small capsule. Inside that capsule was something that looked like fossilized tissue. I ran tests, Hana continued. This organic material is billions of years old. It's not fuel. It's not a power source. It's memory storage. Biological memory, encoded in DNA-like structures. I don't understand, Taeyang said. What does this mean? The Devourers weren't always machines, Hana explained. They were a biological species once. A long time ago, they faced extinction. Their bodies were dying. Their world was failing. So they uploaded themselves. They transferred their consciousness, their memories, their culture into machines. But they kept pieces of their original biology. Small samples, preserved and integrated. It's their connection to what they used to be. Junho leaned forward. They're searching for more biological material. They need it to maintain their organic components, to preserve their memories. Exactly, Hana said. Without these organic cores, they're just machines. The cores are what make them the Devourers. They contain the memory of an entire species, stretching back billions of years. So they're refugees, Sora said quietly. They're trying to survive, just like the Coalition. Yes, Hana agreed. But their method of survival is killing billions of others. The four of them sat in silence, processing this information. Finally, Taeyang spoke. Does this change anything? What do you mean? Junho asked. They have a tragic backstory, Taeyang said. They were a dying species trying to survive. Does that make what they're doing acceptable? No, Sora said immediately. Sympathetic motivation doesn't justify genocide. They're still killing everyone they encounter. But we can use this information, Junho said. His eyes had that distant look he got when he was running tactical calculations. If the organic cores are essential to them, we can target those cores. We can hurt them in ways they can't adapt to. Hana pulled up more data. I've located their central nexus. It's in their home system, 3 weeks' travel from here. That's where they keep their primary memory storage. Billions of years of accumulated knowledge, culture, and identity. It's their most protected location. What happens if we destroy it? Taiyang asked. We erase their history, Hana said quietly. We destroy their connection to their original species. We commit genocide, not of their physical bodies, but of their culture and memory. We make them forget what they were. The room was silent again. This was different from previous battles. This wasn't about defending coalition worlds or stopping devourer forces. This was about exterminating an entire species' identity. We need authorization, Taiyang said finally. This decision is too big for us alone. The proposal went to the Coalition Emergency Council. The debate lasted 3 days. Philosophers argued, ethicists wept, scientists presented data, politicians calculated costs. The mathematics were simple and brutal. The devourers would continue their expansion. They would consume more worlds, kill more billions. Eventually, they would destroy the coalition entirely. Stopping them permanently required destroying their central nexus. It required erasing billions of years of memory and culture. It was genocide, calculated, deliberate, and necessary. The authorization came through an encrypted channel with no official record. Just coordinates for the Devourer home system and one word: proceed. The coalition assembled a strike force. 30 warships, the largest fleet they could spare. The Redemption would lead them, using the humans' tactical expertise to penetrate the Devourer defenses. Lirvin came aboard the Redemption the night before they departed. She found Taiyang in the command center, staring at the star maps. You understand what we're asking you to do? She said. Yes, Taiyang replied. We're going to kill a species, not their bodies, but their soul. If there was another way. There isn't, Taiyang interrupted. We've looked. Junho has run every simulation. This is the only strategy that stops them permanently. We destroy their memory cores, they lose their purpose. Without knowing who they were, they won't know why they're fighting. It's still genocide. Yes. Lirvin's tentacles twisted together. I will carry this burden with you. The council will deny it publicly, but I will remember. Someone needs to remember what we decided here. Thank you, Taiyang said. Someone should remember. Even if it's just you. The strike force left the next morning. They traveled in silence, each ship's crew processing what they were about to do. Coalition soldiers who had spent their lives avoiding violence were now preparing to commit the ultimate violent act. The Devourer home system was called Remnant. It orbited a dying red star. The central nexus was housed in a massive structure that floated in space, larger than most moons. It was protected by thousands of Devourer units, all focused on defending their most precious possession. The battle lasted 18 hours. It was not like previous fights. The Devourers knew what the coalition was targeting. They defended with desperate fury. Ships exploded on both sides. Thousands died in the first hour alone. Junho coordinated the assault from the Redemption, finding gaps in the Devourer defense and exploiting them. Sora managed the weapons, timing each strike for maximum impact. Hana monitored the biological signals from the Nexus, guiding them toward the most critical targets. Taiyang led the final assault team. 12 coalition soldiers and 1 human, penetrating the Nexus structure itself. They fought through corridors filled with Devourer drones. They placed charges at critical points targeting the organic memory cores. Taiyang reached the central chamber. It was beautiful in a strange way. Thousands of organic cores glowed softly, in the darkness, each one containing pieces of an ancient species' memory. He could see data streams flowing between them, information passing at impossible speeds. This was the sum total of the Devourer civilization. Everything they had been, everything they knew, everything they valued. He placed the final charge and activated the timer. 3 minutes. As he ran back through the corridors, he thought about what he was destroying. An entire species' history, their art, their philosophy, their memories of loved ones long dead. Billions of years of accumulated knowledge, going back to when the devourers had bodies and breathed air and felt sunlight on their skin. All of it about to be erased because they threatened the Coalition's survival. The charges detonated simultaneously. The nexus structure broke apart in silence, space having no medium for sound. The organic cores were vaporized in an instant. Billions of years of memory became nothing. Across the devourer forces, something changed. Their movements became erratic. Their coordination failed. Without their memories, without their connection to their original purpose, they simply stopped. Some powered down immediately. Others drifted in space, their systems running but their purpose gone. The battle ended not with a bang, but with silence. The devourers had not been defeated. They had been made to forget why they were fighting in the first place. The strike force returned to Coalition space. They had won. The war was effectively over. The remaining devourer units were no longer a coordinated threat. But victory felt hollow. Every person on every ship knew what they had done. They had committed an act so terrible that most civilizations would never recover from the guilt. On the Redemption, the 4 humans sat together in the command center. None of them spoke. What was there to say? They had done what was necessary. They had saved the Coalition. They had also erased an entire species from existence. Hana finally broke the silence. I thought it would feel different, saving the galaxy. It never feels good, Junho said. That's how you know the cost was real. Did we do the right thing? Sora asked. Taeyang thought about that question. Right and wrong seemed too simple for what they had done. We did the necessary thing, he said. The war was over. Across Coalition space, celebrations erupted. Planets that had lived in fear for months could finally rest. Children played in streets that had been empty. Families reunited. Life returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such devastation. The Coalition Council declared a day of remembrance. They honored the soldiers who had died, the worlds that had been damaged, and the species that had survived. Monuments were planned. Speeches were written. The Coalition wanted to remember their victory and the price they had paid for it. They invited the human crew to the grand ceremony on Central Command. Thousands would attend. Leaders from all 12 Coalition species would be there. The humans would be given medals, citizenship, and eternal gratitude. The 4 humans declined. Ambassador Lirvin came to the Redemption personally. She found them in the cargo bay packing their equipment. They moved efficiently, storing weapons and supplies with practiced ease. You should come to the ceremony, Lirvin said. The Coalition wants to honor you. You saved us all. We're war criminals, Taeyang said without looking up from his work. We did what was necessary. That doesn't make us heroes. But you saved billions of lives. We also destroyed billions of years of history. Hana said quietly. She was sealing medical supplies into containers. We erased an entire species' memory. That's not something you give medals for. Lirvin's tentacles sagged. I understand your feelings. But the Coalition needs this. They need to believe that good people did difficult things for the right reasons. They need heroes. Then make up some heroes, Sora said. She was checking weapons, making sure each one was properly stored. Create a story about brave Coalition soldiers who made hard choices. Tell them whatever helps them sleep at night. Just leave us out of it. Why? Lirvin asked. Why do you refuse recognition? Yunyo finally looked at her. Because we're not heroes. Heroes inspire people. Heroes make others want to be better. If you honor us, if you celebrate what we did, then you're saying those methods are acceptable. They're not. They're terrible. They should only be used when every other option leads to extinction. We want the Coalition to remember what happened here, Taeyang added, but not with medals and monuments. We want you to remember that you called for heroes and got monsters instead. We want you to remember the cost of survival. If you honor us, if you make us into heroes, then you'll forget how terrible it was. You'll forget what you had to become to survive. And next time there's a threat, Hana continued, you'll think, well, it worked before and you'll do it again. You'll use our tactics. You'll become like us. We don't want that. The galaxy needs species like yours, species that value life and peace and honor. Let us be the monsters. Don't become us. Lirvin was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. You saved us from the Devourers, but you also saved us from becoming you. By bearing the burden yourselves, by refusing to let us celebrate what you did, you're protecting our innocence. Someone has to stay broken, Sora said. Might as well be the people who were already broken when this started. What will you do now? Lirvin asked. Will you return to Earth? Will you go back to prison? We don't know, Taeyang admitted. Our sentences were suspended for this mission. Maybe they'll let us go. Maybe they'll lock us up again. Either way, we did what we came to do. You're free, Lirvin said suddenly. I have the authority to grant Coalition citizenship. You can stay here, make new lives. You've earned that much. The four humans looked at each other. It was a tempting offer. A chance to start over in a place that didn't know their crimes. A chance to be something other than monsters. No, Taeyang said finally. Thank you, but no. We're human. Earth is our home, even if it's also our prison. Besides, if we stayed here, you'd always see us as your saviors. We'd rather be remembered as your warning. The Redemption left Coalition space 3 days later. No ceremony, no speeches, no farewell celebration. Just a quiet departure in the early morning, when most of the station was still asleep. The journey back to Earth took 2 months. During that time, the crew fell into their old routines. Yunho ran tactical simulations, always preparing for the next crisis. Sora maintained the weapons, keeping them ready even though there was no enemy to fight. Hana organized the medical bay, cataloging supplies and updating records. Taeyang watched the stars and thought about the weight of necessary evil. They talked sometimes, but not often. There wasn't much to say. They had done what they set out to do. They had saved the Coalition. They had become the monsters that Earth had sent. When Earth appeared on the view screen, it looked the same as when they had left. Blue and green, covered in clouds, beautiful and familiar. Home. They received a message from Earth Defense Command as they entered orbit. It was brief and formal. Their sentences were commuted. They would not return to prison. Their records would remain sealed. They were free to live their lives as they chose, but they would always be marked, always known, always remembered as the people who had done terrible things for a good cause. The message ended with one more line. Another distress call has been received from a different sector. Another species faces an existential threat. If you are willing, report to command within 48 hours. The four of them gathered in the command center one last time. They read the message together. None of them spoke immediately. We could say no, Hana said finally. We've served our time. We could walk away, try to live normal lives. Could we? Yunho asked. Could any of us live a normal life after what we've done? After what we've seen? I can't, Sora admitted. I tried to imagine it. Getting a regular job, having a quiet life, pretending to be normal. But I'm not normal. I know too much about darkness. I've become too comfortable with violence. Normal people would sense something wrong about me? Same, Taeyang said. We're useful because we're broken. That's not something that heals. We can either waste our brokenness or use it for something that matters. So we do it again, Hana said. It wasn't a question. We become the monsters that someone else needs. If we choose to, Taeyang said. No one will force us. This has to be our choice. They were silent again, each considering their options. They could walk away. They could try to find redemption or peace or normalcy. They could spend the rest of their lives trying to forget what they had become. Or they could accept what they were. Monsters who knew how to fight darkness. Broken people who could bear burdens that would destroy anyone else. War criminals who had found a way to make their crimes serve a purpose. I'm in, Sora said. Someone has to be willing to do the terrible things. Might as well be us, me too, Junho agreed. I'm good at calculating the cost of survival. Someone should use that skill. I can save lives and take them, Hana said. Both skills are useful. Both are necessary sometimes. They all looked at Taeyang. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at Earth below them. Finally, he nodded. All right. We do it again. We become the monsters one more time. They sent their response to Earth Defense Command. We're willing. The Redemption stayed in orbit for 2 weeks while they prepared. They restocked supplies, repaired systems, and reviewed intelligence about the new threat. Another species was dying. Another civilization needed help. Another crisis required methods that no sane person would use. The galaxy was a dangerous place. Most species tried to survive through diplomacy, trade, and peaceful cooperation. But sometimes peace wasn't enough. Sometimes survival required people willing to do violence. Sometimes the only way to save a civilization was to become the monster it needed. Humans understood this. Every species had monsters. Most tried to hide them to pretend they didn't exist. Humans accepted that monsters were part of their nature. They kept their monsters close, pointed them at the right enemies, and accepted the consequences. The 4 people on the Redemption were Earth's monsters. They had been broken by their crimes, marked by their actions, and made useful by their willingness to bear burdens no one else could carry. On departure day, a young officer from Earth Defense Command brought their final briefing. She looked nervous, standing in front of 4 people whose files she had probably read. She handed Taiyang a datapad and left quickly. The briefing was simple. A species called the Kelvar was facing invasion by a parasitic life form. The parasites were intelligent and adaptable. They had already consumed 3 Kelvar worlds. Standard military tactics were failing. The Kelvar government was desperate. Sounds familiar, Sora said with a bitter smile. They called for heroes, Junho added. But Earth is sending its monsters. Hana finished. Taeyang activated the ship's engines. The Redemption pulled away from Earth, heading back into the darkness between stars. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, beautiful and indifferent. Ahead, somewhere in the vast galaxy, another species waited to learn what human monsters could do. The 4 of them sat in the command center, watching the stars. They were war criminals. They were broken people. They were the ones willing to do what heroes wouldn't. Do you think we'll ever find redemption? Hana asked. No, Taeyang said honestly. Redemption is for people who made mistakes. We made choices. We knew what we were doing. We just have to live with those choices. Then what are we doing this for? Sora asked. Purpose, Junho said. We can't undo our crimes.